What's up, enthusiasts? This is the first video in our new Q&A series where I take your questions about the Nerf hobby and answer them so we have an easy to access playlist of Nerf information. Now, before we jump into the first two questions for this series, I want to take a moment to emphasize that this series is not about me. The questions should be about the hobby. I might give my opinions on the topics, but this isn't meant to be an AMA. If you all want, I might do one of those at some point in the future, but for these videos, it's all about the Nerf hobby. With that said, let's get into it. Starting things off, Nick Stockner asks, what do the acronyms SAMBO and NIC wars mean? This is something that I totally spaced on how easy it could be for newcomers to the hobby to not immediately know what these acronyms stand for. So let's go over some of them. NIC stands for Nerf Internet Community, which can stand for either the online community for Nerf, being the forums, Reddit, and Facebook groups, but can also represent the higher powered game types that generally allow homemade blasters that use homemade darts, referred to as Steffens, which can come in a bunch of different varieties. But that's a topic for another day completely. SAMBO stands for Stock Ammo Modified Blasters Are Okay. This just means that modded blasters are accepted at the game as long as they don't use homemade darts. This generally results in a different game experience than that of an NIC war, usually a bit lower power across the board, but higher capacities and rates of fire as flywheels really shine here. More often though, you'll hear this referred to as super stock. There was actually a post on Nerf Haven from Langley discussing the idea of moving away from these current acronyms to ones that might make more sense, those being SAO for stock ammo only and HAA for homemade ammo allowed, which I rather like, but I'm aware people might be apprehensive to want to add more acronyms to the Nerf glossary. I know those are the two that were specifically asked for, but I want to cover some of the other acronyms that pop up in the Nerf community. RSCB is one that gets used and took me forever to learn what it exactly stood for. It's a dart-feeding barrel generally used in homemade blasters that doesn't use gravity to feed the darts into the barrel, and has to be tilted down after each shot to feed the next dart. Now, the confusing part to this is that the acronym doesn't stand for anything that represents the function itself. It just takes letters from the names of the creators: Rare7, Short Shit, Cynical Synapses, and 3D BBQ. After that, we've got the OPRV, which stands for Overpressure Release Valve, which will be found in most air blasters. If you pump too much, you'll hear it releasing air to prevent damage to the air tank or bladder inside the blaster. Another common one is AR, which stands for Air Restrictor. It's a piece you'll generally find in spring-powered blasters. These were commonly removed in the past to improve performance, but with the Elite line, that's been changing, because the ARs don't impede performance as much as they used to. There are so many more acronyms that if I went over all of them in this video, it would be monumental in length. So I'll add a link in the info to a Nerf Haven thread that has a lot of the acronyms in it. The next question is from Recycled Hero asking, why aren't zombie players in HvZ required to wear eye protection, considering that modded Nerf blasters are on the field if your game allows them, and they shoot between 90 to 110 FPS. I wouldn't want to be hit in the eye with one of those. Now, I totally agree with that sentiment. I wouldn't want to be hit in the eye with one either. I generally don't want to be hit in the eye by anything, regardless of the FPS. And this was a really good question that I didn't have an immediate answer to. So I went over to the HvZ subreddit to get some answers from actual HvZ game moderators themselves. And this is what I got back. First off, it seems there are a decent number of games that don't allow or have many modded blasters. Several answers felt that eye protection just isn't necessary. I also had a response that they didn't require it because they felt it would encourage players to aim for the head and face, which they didn't want. Now, I understand the logic here, but headshots are gonna happen regardless. So I'm in the camp of wanting to be safe rather than sorry. I also had a response that they didn't require it because they couldn't supply eye protection for 300 plus people, which seems reasonable. That would be expensive and could inhibit a game's growth. But why not require the players to supply their own eye protection? Beyond that, for longer games, they feel it could be unreasonable to make players wear eye protection for a week while playing. There is also the argument that since games are played during the day and around non-player students, if they see people running around with eye protection, it could make them feel it's potentially dangerous, possibly leading to more restrictions on the game. Now, these are interesting points from some game moderators, and I respect what they have to say because they do have experience running games. But I personally will always recommend wearing eye protection because all it takes is one accident to create an incident. And like I said, I'm a fan of safety. That'll do it for our first Q&A video. Thank you so much for all of the questions. If your question didn't get answered, don't think it won't ever get answered because the plan is for there to be one of these videos every couple weeks where I focus on 2 or 3 questions. So leave your questions on this video for the next video and upvote the questions you'd like to see answered. Also, remember these videos aren't for questions about me, but about the hobby. I look forward to more of your questions, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Have fun flinging foam, and I'll see you next time.